Scott is out in L.A.
I work fast and I'm a deal. I write and direct.
Yeah, that guy's great.
But none of them understand that, like, Cleveland is a bombed out third world hellhole.
I go on and on.
Well, that was tremendous fun.
The cat hair apocalypse. Baby, it's like Mad Max, but with cats. Like
Cat
Apocalypse.
For being on some chill shit. Oh Lord, got a whole lot to show for it. I mean, we can really get it, we can go for it. Oh Lord, got a whole lot to show for it. I mean, we can really get it, we can go for it. Oh Lord.
Hypocrisy and nonsense.
It's a combination of stupidity, incompetence, preening.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to That Drawing Show. So happy to be here with you guys. A lot has happened since my last show, and I have a lot to talk about. And we have a lot to go through on today's show, so I don't want to spend a lot of time wasting. I just want to thank everybody who's been watching the show on Twitch, also on YouTube. If you've been enjoying the show, please leave a comment in the comment section, and I promise I'll respond, and share the show with your friends. So today we're coming back into the saddle here on That Drawing Show, and we have a very, very special show. And it's been a few days since we've last broadcast, and I have been very busy. One of the things that I did was I made a trip to Langer's Deli, which is down near MacArthur Park in a horrible part of LA that you never actually want to go to, except that it used to be nice, and this is an old classic deli like you would hope to find in other places that no longer do. But Langer's is still keeping it real. I mean, they're keeping it really real. Like, they have things on the menu that you have to speak other languages to pronounce. But one of the things that really marks an old-time deli, especially like an old-time Midwestern deli, like I'm used to in Cleveland, is a painting like this to be found somewhere in the dining room. And if it's against like wood paneling with this kind of stucco ceiling paneling, even better. So this hit all of the targets. And it's a really beautiful painting that you can find in the back of the deli in the dining room. And it's done by M. Wellman in 1968. And it's of the people there at the deli counter, just like you'd find them today. And in a way, it's a beautiful piece of Americana and a classical painting in like the Norman Rockwell tradition. You're seeing all these different personalities, and you can both admire the content of the painting, like all the different details, and then also tell yourself a story, make up a story, create additional content in your mind, imagining each one of these characters. Another aspect of it that is remarkable and that we're going to talk about today is the idea of how rough many parts of the painting are. And by rough, I'm clearly pointing to areas like this, the way that this knife is handled. Why is it done like that? Clearly, someone with this level of mastery is capable of sort of smoothing things out. You know what I mean? Even with a naive understanding of painting, we can imagine. I mean, look at the bread, for instance. That's nice and smooth. The corned beef looks good. It's really only certain areas that are left rough, you might say. And the question is why? Why? And when I say certain areas, I mean a lot of it. A lot of it is left rough. And you might ask why. And my answer really comes down to the idea of intentionality in painting and in art. And the idea that the artist is not trying to hide his footprints. He's not trying to smooth out his brushstrokes. He's not trying to create a photorealistic reproduction in the sense that he doesn't want to make you think that a human painted it. In fact, quite the opposite. Every stroke that he's making is intentional, and it's expressing an idea, be it the translucent aspect of the folds down here and how much they reflect like all the metalwork that's going on down there beneath the counter, or just the frenetic pace and activity of everything that's going on back here, and how there's no time to smooth everything out because everyone is moving so fast, as opposed to the stationary foods over here that are more in focus in a sense because they're not moving quite as fast. And also just the idea that if you look closely, for instance, at this knife, it can be quite beautifully rendered. You know what? I should not have done that. Let's just sort of take my word for it. Go see the damn painting. The knife is done in such a small amount of, or I'm sorry, it's not a knife. Is it a fish? No, it's a knife, damn it. It's done in a small amount of brush strokes. It's done very intentionally. You can see the palette knife, let's say, moving across the canvas when he does it. And in a way, the artist is both transferring his energy into the painting and then back into to you as the viewer, but also that gives the person life. We're going to get to a quote a little bit later in a book that I'm going to introduce here in a moment, but I might as well, oh, pardon me, that's a mistake. Sorry. We're going to get to a quote here in a moment from a book that I am going to introduce here in a moment. And I'm going to misquote it, and I'm not going to remember the author of the quote, but we'll get to it in a moment. And the idea is that the purpose of art is to capture motion, which is life, and freeze it in time on the canvas or wherever, such that 100 years from now, a complete stranger can come across that work of art and it will move again to that person. It'll come to life again. That is the purpose of intentionality. And It brings us to our discussion today of Drawing Force, a book that has been very influential on me. It's by an author named Michael Mattesi, and he continues to make himself available at various types of trade shows, and he has online courses. You can become, I believe, like a certified force instructor. It is a method for life drawing. It's a method for, as the book cover says, capturing life through drawing. And it's just a way of thinking about what you're doing when you're drawing anything, but in particular the human body, caricatures, forms that move. They could be sort of robots. They don't have to be human, animals, etc. It's really a approach to, like he says, capturing life through drawing. And in particular, I kind of want to focus on the idea of capturing life, this idea that's expressed here on the cover. When we are drawing and what we're doing, like I said before, we're trying to arrest motion in such a way that it breathes again to a stranger who has not seen the model. And that requires, according to Mattesi, really two components. And that is, number one is knowledge of the anatomy. You have to be able to at least visualize in your own mind what you're drawing you have to understand what you're drawing. And the second part is more ethereal, and that's what we're going to really get into here, which is opinion. Knowledge plus opinion. Knowledge of anatomy, and then opinion, a point of view. The idea that, like we saw in the oil painting, every line should express an opinion, every line should have a take and make a statement. And that leads us to our second quote, which is Paul Klee, and it's really something you should think about when you are drawing and you're trying to sort of justify the enterprise of drawing, which is that art, unlike photography, does not reproduce the visible. Art makes visible. It is about the statement you are making. It intentionally cuts away everything you don't want to show, or, as sometimes happens with comics, can't draw. Keep that in mind, especially as you go on your journey and find your own capabilities limited in sort of perfectly reproducing what you're seeing. And in following the force method, make sure to remember, that what we're trying to do is create a statement, and every line we make is our tool to do it. And the ones that we're not capable of making, or the ones that we don't make, are not part of the story we're telling this time. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not doing our job as artists with what we are doing. So let's move on here. We are not going to be able to cover everything in the book. The fact is, I have read this book so many times that it's quite dog-eared, and in some ways probably due for a replacement. I'll definitely be seeing Mike Mattesi at a convention at some point in the future. And like I said, he's very popular. You can certainly go to his website. This is the original first edition. I'm proud to own it because I have been interested in these type of books for many years. It's not enough to go to figure drawing. Have an approach when you go there. Have a strategy. There's a lot of different ways of approaching a figure drawing class. Don't just go there and wing it. Try to go about your business in a particular way and see if that works for you. This is one way. So as we move into the book here, he has a number of sort of explanatory ideas about what he's trying to achieve and what this concept of force is. And he starts introducing the concept through some very simple but interesting life drawings by the team of artists that he has working for him. And it's instructive when you get a copy of the book to go over these drawings, and I have, I have, frankly, notebooks and notebooks of copies of all the drawings in this book. They're great warm-up drawings. You're not exactly following the procedure, you're not seeing the model, but you're applying the principles that he talks about in the book to some actual drawings and getting yourself warmed up. One thing that I think, I don't want it to be too bleached out here. I want it to be visible but not be too bright. So forgive me as I adjust the lighting here. Pardon me. One of the most important ideas in the book that we're going to get to here in a moment is the idea of what force itself is. And I feel like that's an important concept, but I actually want to skip ahead to another idea here. Hold on a second here. And introduce this first. Here we go. Which is the idea of hierarchy. This, to me, is the most important concept in drawing, and it's something that I feel like, as a caricature artist, this has to be my approach. Whether or not your approach to drawing caricatures follows the force method, the idea of observing and conforming to hierarchy in your drawings, to me, seems to be the only way. It's the only way with things like watercolor, for sure. However magical some people on Instagram may appear, that just means that they've internalized the hierarchy and the engineering process of the drawing. I mean, the watercolor drawing. Because especially with things like watercolor, if you don't do things in the right order, you're lost. But even with a line drawing, to be successful with it, you have to start with a core idea, the most general, highest level of abstraction, and work down from that. And what is that core idea? It's this idea of force, of a point of view, of what the pose is about, the relationship between the pose and gravity, and then break down the individual body parts, the muscles and skeletal elements, certain details, and then the finest details. The order of importance goes down the pyramid. The abstraction, the level of abstraction goes up the pyramid. It's easy to identify things like facial details right off the bat, especially as a caricature artist, but to place them correctly in the face and in a way that tells a story, you have to first have an understanding of the story that you're trying to tell. You have to start at the top of the pyramid and work your way down. So that brings us to the idea of force. What is this idea of force? Basically, he's really talking about line and how we capture motion through line. And his idea is that in every one of these poses and every one of these figure drawings, you have directional force, where it's very clearly sort of the motion is very clearly moving in one direction or another, especially with relation to gravity and the ground plane. And you have applied force. And often, always, in his mind, the two go together. And the easiest example of that is a hip. As you apply force in one direction with your right leg, you can kick your left hip up into the air. And that left hip and that motion, that curve of your left hip, that becomes the directional force. And that straight line that goes right down into the ground with your right leg that you use to pop your left hip up into the air, that's the applied force. And that's what we're kind of seeing here with this very simple diagram. And the idea is that as you move into the curve, imagine you're like in a race car and you're going around a bend in the mountains. You accelerate into the curve, but you decelerate into the curve because this is the apex of energy right here. You can't go too fast. This is the peak, the summit right there, and then you accelerate outside of the curve. I don't know. I'm trying to follow his analogy. I'm not sure that exactly fits the mold, but certainly your pen will decelerate as it moves through this process. Certainly in a curve that is more bending, you have more applied force, and in a curve that's less bending, you have less applied force. That's clear enough. And the point overall is that curved lines like this, the more curved it is vis-a-vis a straight, that's why we put curves against straights, but the more curved it is, the more forceful it is. And curved lines in general are more forceful than straight lines because they clearly show direction and applied force. And by structuring your figure drawing approach around capturing forces rather than trying to follow outlines, rather than trying to reproduce anatomy, rather than trying to plot shit out with a grid and all the other ways that you hear about going about figure drawing, by using the applied forces approach, you will be more successful in creating the point of view that the model is trying to express, the attitude of the pose, and thus reproducing that pose in your viewer's mind, again, a viewer who will not be seeing the model. You will be more successful in really getting that pose across than the person who simply captures visually what they're seeing. You'll be making the statement better. You'll be telling the story better than a perfect reproduction of the photograph. That's the idea of the force approach. I feel like it must be able to be applied to caricature. Isn't that what a lot of people mean when they say the word exaggeration? Probably. They are probably just talking about a extreme application of the force approach to a body part. I got a little bit ahead here. We're not going to go too deep into the book because what I'd like to do is talk just a little bit about the concepts in the book and give you an invitation to see it for yourself, and then get to drawing and try to do a few drawings today. And I've already done a little bit of warm-up that exemplify the force approach, and at least maybe I'll talk through what I'm doing when I'm drawing along that line. This is not a great example of leading edge, but I did want to say that the final idea that he does want to get across, at least we'll talk about here, is the concept of leading edge, and the idea that in a pose like this, in order to make it successful, you have to capture this, what he'll call leading edge. And the more you can structure the rest of the pose around this and give this the center of attention, make this important, the more you will carry over this gimmick. This is the most important top of the pyramid. Then it's about the relationship of these other parts to that and anchoring her firmly into the ground while preserving this as a leading edge. That's what this pose is about, and it's the edge here that leads the motion. It's the largest amount of applied force, and it's the top of the pyramid. So it's important to identify that early. All right, let's see here. Let's go one more section here. He talks about rhythm in a pose and the interplay between rhythm and force. Rhythm is when two or more forces interact with each other. It's the interplay between forces in the body, and in particular the way that the body uses different applied forces to anchor itself into the ground. It's gravity that sort of makes us conform to rhythm. I'm going to clip this down here. Here, hold on a second here. No, that's fine. Okay. Yeah. So, when the body has to deal with gravity, it has to adjust itself in various ways. The ways it does so create a kind of symmetry, and by capturing the interplay between the forces around that line of symmetry, you're able to capture the pose. One element that Mattesi talks about that will make this sort of easier is keeping in mind that the man's center of gravity is up high in the chest, the women's center of gravity is down low into the pelvis, and so when you're capturing this relationship of rhythm, it is good to remember the interplay between forces, the head, pelvis, and the feet. And the idea is that the mass of the body, more or less, has to remain equal on either side of its line of symmetry. So if, for instance, a man has his shoulders off to one side, and that's the main center of gravity, he's going to have to put the rest of his body, the hips, the feet, maybe his hands, on the other side in order to balance it out. And the same with a woman and her hips. Keeping a line of symmetry and figuring out where that is, even if you don't draw it in any figure drawing pose, will help make your pose anchor into the ground a little bit more. Let's see here. Yeah, so this is then sort of a analogy with a ski slope. As you trace the body's solution to this puzzle of rhythm, how to deal with gravity and how to use the various body parts and forces and curves in order to balance oneself around the line, some line of symmetry. It doesn't have to go sort of straight through the middle of your picture, but there is a line of symmetry and there's a balance between that. You can analogize it as a ski slalom, or I almost kind of like to imagine as like a spring, or a windy piece of metal or whatever that can balance itself, that can find a balance, even though each individual loop is not equivalent. Like I said, there might be if this is a woman, there might be a big mass of center of gravity over here that needs to be balanced over here by two smaller ones. This is the beauty and the magic of dancing, is the ability to manipulate the various masses of one's body and stay in balance. So this is rhythm, and this is Mattesi's book. Clearly, I'm not as great at explaining it, perhaps, as I could be, but I encourage you to find out more about him online, and I'm going to switch over to a different view and start some drawings, and we'll talk about the drawings I did this weekend and how they went. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. There we go. Right on. Very nice, very nice. So, okay, we're back. We're back. It's that drawing show. Thank you. So happy to be here. We're going to be back at the drawing board in a minute. I'm not 100% sure that it's going to look great, so bear with me if it doesn't look beautiful. But we're looking at Mike Mattesi's book, Drawing Force, today, and in a minute we're going to do some drawings. I had a fun weekend. I was at a wedding this weekend, and it was an absolutely beautiful wedding, and gosh, what beautiful people. I have to say, the lady and her family were some of the most beautiful young women I have ever had the pleasure of drawing for. It was such a pleasure to be there, and I can't say enough good things about the setting. It was in Camarillo, California, and I just enjoyed every bit of it. So I was really lucky to be there, and I think I did an okay job. I stood up. I didn't pass out. It was my first booking back in 2 months, and I was nervous as hell. I was shaking like a leaf. But I did some decent drawings. This is an example of one of the drawings I did. I tried to do some full bodies, but then the line built up, and then I just did faces, and I kind of took that as an L because I really wanted to do more full bodies, and I wanted to do more with the poses that I had practiced all week. In fact, not only did I not do full bodies, I went back to underdrawings after a week of practicing with no underdrawings. So I think what we're going to do is make a commitment to doing no underdrawings here on the show, and just doing our best to, try and be disciplined at the gigs and do as minimal underdrawings as possible. The problem is once you start with the underdrawings, pretty soon you're going out of control, and you can't help yourself. Anyway, this drawing does have some nice force principles to it. I'm trying to get this thing done in as few... Hold on a second here. I'm trying to get this thing done in as few lines as possible. So you don't have a lot of time to... as my father would say, putz around. You just have to try to express these ideas as quickly as you can. Of course, I could have made some better choices in terms of line work. Hold on. But these motions, I think, are just right in terms of what we're trying to achieve here. We wanted to have a hard... You know what? Here, let's use this. Okay, we wanted to have a hard straight here to put these girls into the ground. Here I have that, here I have that. That looks good. This curve goes up perfect. This is good. It could have been a little bit more round like I just drew it. This would have been better. You know what I mean? In terms of balance. You notice, like, we were talking about line of symmetry here. If this is the line of symmetry, this would have been better. You know what I mean? To have it out like this. But overall, not bad. I have a nice tilt here. This is a good knowledge of anatomy here. You can see a little rib cage here. You see that there. That's good. This pose gets over. This line should have been down like that. But here, good. Good. This, fine. The foot is good. It's credible. All these are pleasing to me. You know what I mean? I even... made my way through this dress. I kind of wanted to color the whole thing in black, but I just didn't have time. This probably should have been over like this. I think I lost track of what I was doing. This should have been like this. That was how I wanted this drawing to be, and just like I said, I think I lost a little bit of track of what I was doing here. But overall, this one I think worked out pretty good. The pose worked out. The secondary pose worked out. I worked a decent secondary pose around it. The girls were happy. It works out. And then later on this weekend, I have a party that's a Jurassic Park luau. It's a combination of dinosaurs and luau. I have my dinosaur paper. I have my surfer paper. I can do surfing dinosaurs if that's what they want. So yeah. Anyway, let's go over to the drawing board and see if we can do some decent drawings of the bride and groom. Like I said, it's ancient history, but it'd be nice to see us do a couple decent drawings. Let's see if we can get it done. And again, this might require a moment's patience with the cameraman. Oh, hold on one second. I love it when some people say to me that I should look into being, creative, with binder clips. They'll say, "Oh, hey, you should look at some videos online about binder clips." If somebody says that to me, I want to rip their face off. Okay. Not bad. I feel like we could be a little bit better lit. Yeah, I need to get another camera, but I mean, my gosh, how many cameras do you think I can afford? This is a budget operation, dude. Okay, nice. All right, getting there. Beautiful. Okay. So happy to be here, everybody. So like I said, this is a beautiful couple. We had a really nice time at the wedding. The people were so good looking. It made me feel even more guilty about not being married. What can I tell you? Okay, let's take a force approach to drawing this gal. One thing that certainly stands out is that the camera's upside down, kids. Hold on, I've got to turn this camera around. What a disappointment, right? Hold on. Okay, I hope that works. Okay, good. So, oh yeah, as soon as you have it right, then you hit the camera. Okay, so yeah, it was a great wedding. The gal was beautiful. Everyone was nice. And very wealthy. When it comes to her face, it's hard, I feel, to apply the force drawing method independent of the entire anatomy. You can't just look at the face. To me, it's as much about, as I hit everything, man, I'm a little bit uncomfortable here. All right. It's as much about capturing, like, the collarbone and just understanding the relationship between the head and all the other things that are going on here. We could fill this in with black, but the thing that I want to try to get across here in the drawing that we're doing is the importance of just this line here, this edge, and you know, the idea here that we're like, this is her cross there. You know, that's sort of our position there. It's not important to do this sort of shadowing now. I'm just trying to like get across, this is what is in my mind even before I finish the rest of this drawing. Is like, we're looking this way, her body's tilted this way, this is a hard line that gives us sort of structure. This kind of represents her collarbone, sort of represents the ground plane. This black is her hair over here. If you want to bound it, if you want to say, okay, we don't want to worry about the facial details. We want to figure out, okay, where does this end? We have the hair here. You could either start by defining the rest of the head or try to play off what we have. We know we have this jaw. Let's get this cheek over here and the other jawline over here. That was a bad one. This is knowledge of anatomy, where knowledge of anatomy helps. Now we can say, all right, the forehead is going to be up here. Follow the photograph for things like hair. There's no reason to reinvent the hair if it's right in front of you. Part, we talked about that in the last show, like being cognizant of where on the forehead the woman's part is. It wouldn't be a bad idea, just for the sake of this drawing, to do some fill-ins here. Okay. You're not going to have enough time to spot a ton of blacks. I got news for you. Like, in order to spot the blacks without ruining the drawing, you do need time, and that's the main thing you don't have. Also, peace and quiet. Like, people are going to want to talk to you. You're going to have to entertain. You can't be a grumpy munchkin. You have to be entertaining, and that will take some attention away from the drawing. Okay. You see, I'm telling little stories down here that don't mean anything because I'm wasting time. Okay, let's get to the face. We have this cheek here. That's going to be one sort of line of force stretching the smile up. We know we're going to have a smile here. Her smile is just so perfect. Beautiful. Good. Good. Now, we are way too low here. Look at how low this chin is. That was obviously a mistake. But we can correct it a little bit. This is obviously a mistake too, this line. keep hitting the camera. Obviously, we can't do that. Of course, of course, of course. Okay. The nose is going to be here. I'm almost on autopilot here. I mean, these sort of things are barely based on observation more than anything else. I think I sort of blew it already. You see, when you dither around on the eyebrow, eventually you miss what you're trying to do. That should have been a very clear statement, but instead I made it a bloated statement. Okay. This came across as too deep. I don't need to go so deep into the figure. I should be more conservative there. Anyway, okay. Not exactly what I wanted to try to do. I think that these eyes could have been a little bit lower, maybe. But, anyway, all right, let's move on to the guy. We want to put him a little bit over here, right? Let's make sure that we at least know where he's going to be bounded. Once you have something to work with, obviously you've limited your choices. The logical space is smaller. You know what I mean? Certain types of things are going to be out of the question, and it's a lot easier to move forward. Kind of made a mess of that hair, it really did. The point is that this guy kind of has a, oh, good, keep hitting the camera. This guy kind of has a Patrick Bateman vibe. So, okay, good. Now, you could put the hand around her waist gimmick. I wish I was this relaxed at the actual event. I wasn't. I shudder to think what the drawing that I did would look like to me now. Sorry, people. I did my best in the moment. Okay. One thing we definitely have to work on is getting that nose to pop. It's a thing, for sure. I mean, it's the piece of the two-dimensional drawing that is most forward in Z, so obviously it's going to be an issue. How do you get that thing to really stick out? I have not figured it out yet. All right, everybody. Well, I don't know if we really applied the forced drawing method there, but and certainly there's some mistakes here. But you got what you got. What can I say? It's been that drawing show, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be able to turn the camera on and do a bad drawing for everybody on every show. And I thank everybody for tuning in. We're going to be working more on these type of drawings. We're going to be working more on forceful drawings, drawings that push edges and leading edges and really give people a sense of rhythm and force. So thanks for tuning in, and happy drawing.